based on what we heard yesterday when Bishop gave the statistics from the Pew group, we know that it's raised. And I would say that it has. There's been a number of studies. Aquinas Institute, the Dominicans, created their doctoral program, Doctor of Ministry and Preaching. It's the only Catholic doctoral program in homiletics in the world. It's created in response to Fulfilled in Your Hearing and the call for better preaching. We're building a culture of the Word. St. John Seminary, Father Charles Miller. Father Charles Miller was one of the gurus from early on in the 70s, along with Sister John Delaplane and another priest from the East Coast, who really began a development of how we can learn homiletics in a good and strong way. Again, building the culture of Word. If you're interested in a Charlie Miller book, this book called Ordained to Preach is a lovely book. He was a good man, good Vincentian man. But St. John's Seminary from 2004 that I've been there, that doesn't mean it makes it great. But long before I got to St. John's Seminary, it was the only seminary that had 8 units of homiletics for the last 30 years. Other seminaries have caught up. But St. John's remains probably the first one, and that's because of Charlie Miller, certainly not me. The Catholic Theological Union, Reed and Hoppy, did a report in that they said that only a third of us effectively know how to use Scripture in our preaching. That was from 1997. They've done a review 10 years later, and that number is higher. We're better now. We are growing in our homiletic work. In 2020, the Diocese of Dallas sent out parishioners. They did one of their synodal things long before Pope Francis called for it. And in it, they did a survey on the preaching of the Dallas priests and deacons. And after they averaged it all out, that diocese is a C+ group of preachers. We're kind of like, that's not so bad, is it? That's better than that F. Right? Okay. We're moving in the right direction. What are they saying about your preaching? I just want to point this out. Here are some of the things that were sent out to a diocese. I won't tell you the name of the diocese. And the lay folks said this about their preaching. This is the positive slide. There's 2 positive, and there'll be 2 not so positive. The priest is excellent. He relates the gospel to our daily lives, proclaims to his congregation without getting too philosophical and preachy. Homilies are often centered around Christ's love and mercy, proclaims God's words in a positive way, applicable to all generations, special talent to reach all the different cultural background parishioners, and way homilies connect with students. These were some of the positive ones. Do you see yourself in any of them? Some more positive ones. They can relate to current events, shows compassion and understanding. When you preach, do you sound like you're understanding and compassionate? He's always preparing the homily for daily and Sunday masses. It's well known. The person can see it. Thought out and prayerful homily. Well organized. He prepares and puts a lot of time into his preaching. Concise, but packed with information to ponder. Pardon?
How can that be?
Concise and packed with information to ponder. I put it in the positive, but it's striking to go in both when you look at it. But what I like about those, these are the things that the people, wherever I've gone, these are the things they're looking for from us. Compassion, mercy. Do you love me? Will you be there for me? Will you create a homily? Will you put time into it? Is it going to be well organized? Okay, let's be fair. Let's move to the not so positive ones. His homily paraphrases on the fly from a little missile. It would be helpful if he could talk more about justice. That's not so bad. During his homilies, I get the sense that we are being scolded for not performing as we should. I would suggest that Father would add more stories to his homilies. Father only focuses on praying the rosary, love God, Medjugorje and Mary. I don't know, that's a great great start, in my opinion. So maybe there's more that's needed. His homilies contain a lot of history, but not a lot relating to our lives today. Homilies are too generic and don't provide parishioners with many real-life examples of how we might live the gospel. Again, what they're not getting is what they're looking for. Are you in any of those? Here's a few more. His delivery is dry and unemotional. There's no emotion to the preaching. I wish Father didn't read his homilies. He needs more self-confidence. I think that one's fascinating. It's a perception somebody has about the priest, that he has no confidence. Maybe he prefers to read his homilies. Father's homily sounds like something from the internet. The homily is mostly monotone. Almost always he goes way too long on his homilies. It is hard to understand the point he is trying to make. And this is a good one for many of us. English is the second language, and it is difficult to understand. Do you sound like any of these? All of these are simply to put out there what the lay folks are saying about us. It may match the perception we have about ourselves or not. But unless we ask the people, we won't know. And thus, in my opinion, the synod comes at a beautiful time for you here in this diocese. Because as I heard Connie talk about it, Connie Clough talk about it, and I know the bishop talked about it, you can add other questions to a questionnaire. I would love for you to put on there, what do you think about my preaching? And not to be afraid of the answer. You will learn more about who you are as a preacher than you've ever learned from me in 36 hours. So what do your people say about your preaching? Ask them. This is something I said to you last night. After Mass, this is the typical reaction when you're out there greeting people. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Father, that was a nice homily. Never let them say it was a nice homily. Ask them what they heard. Keep that one in mind. What did you hear? It's good to say thank you, but what did you hear? Number 2, be prepared to listen. When we offer the chance for people to tell us what they think, and we're not going to get angry about it, don't be surprised when they will talk to us. Make sure you're in a good mood. Invitation. This is the other thing I mentioned the other day that I think would help any parish or any of us with preaching. After you preach, if you can get a group of parishioners once a month and say, this is the first Sunday of the month, and we're going to talk about what you heard in the deacon's homily or in my homily of the pastor or the parochial vicar. What did you hear? Make sure you get different cultural backgrounds, male and female, and ask those 3 questions. What was my central idea? How will it touch your life this week? And where did you meet God in what I preach? Because this is what they're really looking for. This will tell you whether you are being relevant or not. You all write those down? And prepare with a group of parishioners. Now this one I think is very important. If you're struggling with preaching, meet with a group of parishioners on Monday, or even on that Sunday after that Mass, not to talk about the preaching you just did, but to talk about the readings that are coming up. If you listen to what they're saying, you will have a homily 60% done after an hour of listening to them. Their input will spark ideas in your minds. You will be surprised what they hear in the Scripture and how it may move you to preach a homily. What is God saying to you in these readings? How would you apply what we just prayed? Do these readings sound like anything happening in your life today? And again, be a good listener. Take off that expert hat. They know we're experts in theology. They know we know Scripture. Set it to the side and listen to what they say. And this is the last one that I put up here for this one, and I'm going to ask a question after this. But I've also known priests to get together on a weekly basis. Monday, for a priest support group, they go out for breakfast. The four of them go out for breakfast, and they always are ready to talk about the next week's homily. Now, when we talk about it, all that does is they read it, and they talk about it. What do you think? What's this? This is funny. This is going on in my parish. That's going on in my life. And they leave, and they say their homilies are ready to roll by Wednesday, because the ideas are already percolating amongst themselves as priests. So these are just some ways, in my opinion, that will help us to build that culture of the Word. Be good support for each other. Any questions at this point? I did not get to the funeral preaching, Father Ron. I'm sorry, I keep saying I will get there. We will start tomorrow with the hard topics. We're going to do funeral preaching first because that is a hard topic. And then we will continue on with other hard topics, including eschatology. But that kind of hits with the funerals too, so it's kind of all there. The last thing I'm going to say for tonight, I did bring some books that in my life as a preacher and a priest, I have found them to be helpful.